Hello, and welcome to a Chessama Chess. E4, E5, and pawn to F4. The King's Gambit. That is what we are going to look at today. These moves were first described by a man called Luis Ramirez de Lucena, very famous guy, famous for the Lucena position, and it was first described in 1497 in his chess book, so that's more than 500 years ago. Pretty crazy. In his chess book, let me show I get this right. Repetition amores y arte de ajedrez. So may that mean something like repetition of the art and love of chess. So for more than 500 years, chess players have studied these opening moves. I will reset the board, and here is what we are going to do. This is the start of a series where I am going to learn how to play the King's Gambit. And you up there in the other camera will also learn to play the King's Gambit. And we start almost from scratch. I played a little bit of King's Gambit 7 years ago. I forgot everything. I don't know the history of the opening, but I do know that legendary world champion Boris Spassky loved E4, E5, F4. He loved this, and he played it many times in classical chess. I think about 60 games he had in classical chess with the King's Gambit, and he didn't lose a single one. So we will start with Boris Spassky, very, very famous world champion. And perhaps the most famous game of all in the King's Gambit is when he beat Bobby Fischer from this position. So we are going to take a look at that game. I'm just going to go through the moves. I haven't seen the game before, so I will try to analyze it with you and understand what's going on. Let's go. So this game was played in 1960 in Mar del Plata with Boris Spassky as white, who played E4, Bobby Fischer played E5, and then we saw F4. Let's see what Bobby responded with. So I know that you can capture the pawn, and I know that he later said that maybe pawn to d6 here is very good, or maybe capture the pawn first and then pawn to d6. Let's see what Bobby comes up with. Okay, Bobby wants to capture the pawn, like so. That's a romantic style, and I guess we want to understand that move because that is the foundation, that is the whole point of the Gambit. So in this position, what do we think Boris will play? Maybe he will play pawn to d4. Maybe he'll play knight f3. Let's take a look. Okay, so he plays knight to f3. He's in no rush to capture the pawn. He's not playing something like d4 to capture it with the bishop. Maybe this knight move is about being able to at some point come here to g5, so that a move like pawn to g5 is discouraged a little bit, although it is already, I notice, defended by the queen. So what does Fischer do here? Pawn to d6 maybe? No, he actually immediately goes for this. So this is the big test. White says, I can give you a free pawn, and if I am allowed to regain that pawn at some point, then I will be very happy. But you can defend it, and I will get speedy and efficient deployment of my forces in return. So this is Bobby Fischer saying, you are not getting the pawn back. I will defend the pawn. And this is apparently okay in the king's gambit. This is not okay in the queen's gambit. I will just quickly show you the difference. So if we go back to the beginning and we play, instead of using the king's gambit, we do the queen's gambit, then pawn takes, the queen's gambit accepted. That is okay, but after pawn to e3 attacking the pawn, b5, the equivalent of g5, if it was the king's gambit, that is not okay. This is a very significant advantage to white. Starting with the move a4, and you've maybe seen this in my other videos, something like c6, takes, and queen to f3. The rook is trapped. Big troubles for black. But in the king's gambit, it's a different story. It's a different story, and apparently e4, e5, f4, d takes, f, knight, f3, and g5 is okay for black. So it looks like white has nice control of the center. This pawn is very good. So attacks 2 light squares, and the knight attacks 2 dark squares in the center. But I am afraid of a move like b5, g5, g4, I mean pawn to g4, attacking the knight. That's something I would worry about. I would want to know what to do against that. So let's see what the master Boris Spassky plays. Okay, immediately he challenges this. He plays h4. So we also saw a4 against a similar setup in the queen's gambit. But I would also be worried here about this diagonal towards the king. And I'm interested if Bobby is going to play pawn to b4. And he is. So that attacks our knight. So, of course, we have, as white developed the knight, we have a nice pawn in the center, and we have this pawn that may be useful, and the rook may be able to come into the game, but we are also under attack, and we are down a pawn. So where do we go with the pawn? Actually, maybe this pawn helps this knight so that it can go here, protected by the pawn, so queen can't capture. But it looks like simple move like h6 attacking the knight would just spell disaster. So let's take a look. Okay, instead forward knight to e5 here. Now the queen is attacking this pawn. So, and the knight is attacking this pawn. So maybe we will be able to regain the pawn. Okay, so the book that first studied this was called something like Repetition de Amores y Arte del Ajedrez or something like that. So repetition. I'm going to repeat the moves here just for my own sake. Help me maybe memorize it a little better. I know e4, e5, f4, takes, knight f3, g5, h4, g4, and knight e5. So will we see maybe h5 defending the pawn here? No, instead knight c6, but we can play knight takes pawn here because it is defended by the queen, but I guess we would see knight takes, queen takes, and then something like d5, opening up an attack here, embarrassing our queen. Doesn't look too convincing. What is the recommendation from Boris Spassky? Okay. So he is saying, I play d4. So look at this position here. It's very, very interesting. In chess, we want to control the center. And now white has established d4 and e4. And also this really forward knight here. So we do have a lot of advantages. But at the same time, we are down a pawn, and our center is not very stable, and it's very, very concrete. For instance, this e pawn here can actually just be captured by the knight. That's something we must understand, and this knight here, like just a simple move like pawn to d6, could actually be a problem for this knight. So I'm very interested to see what goes on here. But we also have a lot of activity. Queen, bishop, they are both open. This bishop can come here, attack f7 along with the knight. So a lot of stuff going on. And this is not sort of, I play all these Queen's Gambit systems that they are usually not that tactical right out of the opening. They are usually a little bit more positional, and you can get away with maybe not knowing the exact theory at all time, because if you play a slightly wrong move order, you're probably not going to be punished unless you are playing against like a grandmaster or something. But this position here for white, I can already see maybe it's a position I want to get into, but if I do get into it, I want to know what I'm doing. Let's see if Spassky knows what he's doing. So against pawn to d6, that was something we looked at. We want to know what to play here. Is it knight takes here? Is it knight c4? Is it some crazy sacrifice on f7? Spassky, show me your preparation. Okay, instead, Spassky retreats the knight to d3. Okay, can I remember the game up to this point? Knight to d3. It's a very concrete move. Looking at f4 together with the bishop. Let's see. Let's repeat. See if we can remember the moves. e4, e5, f4. E takes f. Knight f3. g5. h4. g4. Knight e5. Knight c6, right? This was attacking here, but that's not our concern. We play d4, d6, knight d3. I believe this is correct. Okay, so what is black doing here? Maybe really something about getting in with a check, maybe. Let's see. No, just being quite cheeky and capturing on e4. So now we are down in this variation, we are down with 2 pawns. I must say that it doesn't look like something I would, if I had just played this like on a whim, I didn't know that this was supposed to be okay for white, I would be pretty afraid that I was just getting destroyed. I'm down 2 pawns. Look at this guy, look at this guy, look at this guy. The black king doesn't seem that weak, but maybe we can play something like queen here to try and expose, but I would be worried, let's say. So what's the move here? Is it knight takes? No, it's bishop takes. Okay, so we do develop. So after knight takes e4, we see bishop takes f4, regaining one pawn and getting a nice piece developed. And Fischer plays bishop g7, so that attacks d4. And Spassky apparently just plays knight c3, saying you can come and capture this pawn. He just wants to get all the pieces into the game. Okay. So will we see pawn takes? I will see bishop takes also because it threatens a check here. Let's see. No, of course not actually. Because after we play knight to c3, we are actually threatening to just come in and capture the knight. So Fischer just chops off the knight. It's also nice in your hidden material. B takes, after knight takes c3, then b takes c3. Okay. So now white has some weird doubled pawns, but a pretty well defended pawn on d4. A weird knight, but that is actually exercising influence over the center, also protecting this bishop. That seems to be, it seems to be an okay bishop, but it seems like a very, very concrete position where we really want to know what we are doing. And Fischer plays pawn to c5. I guess that is about making this bishop stronger. In the dragon variation of the Sicilian, which I have a video on, I call this Fianchetto bishop the one-eyed super monster sniper bishop. It has one eye because it's only looking at this diagonal here, but it is a super monster sniper because, let's say you foolishly try to capture this pawn, the sniper picks up here, it's check, going to pick up the rook. It's a very strong piece. So Fischer with c5, trying to make this guy stronger. Spassky plays bishop to e2. So that's, that's the kind of stuff that I would hope that I could find in a position like this, because it attacks this, so it comes up with a little bit of tempo, and then we can castle afterwards, getting a little bit more secure. Of course, if we do castle, we have to understand that this pawn is under attack, but this is the kind of move that helps me make a little bit of sense of the position. And Fischer is saying, yeah, you can develop your pieces, but I'm counterattacking. He plays c takes d, and it looks like it's so weird because to me it looks like black is just destroying white, because you can't really recapture this. You can't really castle. You do have more pieces developed, I guess, but are we going to see bishop takes pawn here? No, okay, he just plays castle. So he's giving up this. Maybe we will see queen takes. But so world championship contender and world champion Boris Spassky, of course, didn't miss that this pawn was under attack. So what is this about? Okay, apparently this can't really be captured, because Fischer doesn't. He plays knight to c6. curious as to why this can't be captured. Is it because just bishop takes here? I guess so. Because queen takes, bishop takes, and that would actually trap the king. Now the king can't castle. So I guess the bishop here actually has a pretty important role. It is trying to tie the queen down to the d6 pawn. So that is why we have the bishop on f4, and that is why we see knight to c6. And here we see, after knight c6, bishop takes g4. So now white is only one pawn down, but there's still this situation going on, this tension here. Fischer does not capture. I guess you don't want to capture here because with the king in the center, you know, something like rook check, it will get ugly. So instead Fischer just castles. And maybe he would really like to have a pawn here. There is no pawn there. But I can kind of see now that this rook is pretty good. These bishops are pretty good. This knight is pretty good. So white definitely have some compensation for the pawn. But it still looks very, very risky to me. And after castles, we see the very surprising move to me. Bishop takes bishop. Bishop takes bishop on c8. That is very surprising to me, because I would think that you wouldn't want to spend 1, 2 moves and then 3 moves to trade your bishop for a bishop that hadn't moved. So white invested 3 moves in making an equal exchange in material to something in which there had been invested 0 moves. I guess rook has to recapture, not queen, but rook on this semi-open file looks also very good. Yes, rook captures. So what is the point, Spassky? What is the point? Is it something like queen here with threats like this? Maybe it's just trying to move with force and just try to attack this king position here of black. Let's take a look. I was right. Nice. Queen g4. So it's always nice to guess a move played by the great Boris Spassky, but there's also the other thing that it's an indication that I can maybe at some point get to a place where I have an intuitive understanding of the positions. That's why I'm starting like this series on learning the King's Gambit. I'm starting with just seeing some games of the biggest master of the King's Gambit ever. Just let's get into it slowly, see what it's all about, learn in our own way, in our own tempo. So now we are, as white, threatening something like bishop here can't be captured because it's pinned by the queen and we want to come in and checkmate. So I guess a move like queen here, but can be exposed to the rook, so maybe not. No, instead, very good move, I think here. f5 by black that attacks the queen and gives us also a little bit more space to work with, extends the scope of this rook. I'm guessing queen g3. Let's take a look. Yes, queen g3. Because now we are moving out of the attack. We are applying more pressure to this pawn. We are still threatening this. So actually, is this a good position for white now? I guess this move can be met by something like this, but okay. So Fischer doesn't defend here. He's not concerned with this. He actually just plays pawn takes pawn on c3, which I'm very happy about because that means we can see what Spassky wants to do here. Okay, he's not capturing here. He's not playing this. It's apparently much more important to get the last piece into the game. Rook on A to E1. So why E1? Why not, for instance, D1, where we could maybe harass X-ray this queen? Why? Why not bishop takes? If we had here, if we had bishop takes, then we are attacking the rook. Could there be some intermezzo check here? Doesn't seem to do anything. So that's something we have to return to. Spassky plays rook A to E1. And here we have a very interesting move. King H8. So that is probably about getting out of this, because now we can capture. And that's probably also why we didn't see bishop takes, because this threat of bishop H6 is more important. So how did rook A to E1 help us with this? Let's say that we get to move again. So black is not allowed to do this move, or they waste a move somehow. Here, now we have to defend this. So rook here doesn't work because rook takes rook and we can't recapture because of checkmate. So let's say we defend with the other rook. And then maybe just a move like knight here, coming in here. And if we try to here, then here, and the knight here is defended by this rook here. So I think that is what it's about. And so now So after this rook move, where we are threatening something like this and this, Fischer sidesteps all of that with king h8. So we want the knight here, so we put the rook here and the other rook here. I can see the attacking formation. Rook, rook, queen, all attacking here. Knight wants to come to e6. And the bishop wants to go to h6. Okay. And now, wow. So here Spassky plays king h1. So let's say he didn't do that. What's the threat? Is it something like just check moves rook here, attacking the queen? Or is there something about this check? That doesn't seem... So I don't have an engine running or anything. I'm just trying to think with my own brain here. So Spassky plays here. Why is that? It's interesting. Oh, I think we get a glimpse of what that's about. So Fischer goes on a counterattack now. That's also enabled by king h8. He goes with the rook to g8, lining up against the queen. Would also x-ray the king if the king hadn't moved. because if the king hadn't moved, we could see check, then king moves, and we pick up the queen. So that was already sidestepped prophylactically. Then rook here. Maybe like h5. No, apparently now it's time to play bishop takes d6, I guess. I guess that makes a lot of sense. If this knight wasn't here, the fact that we were defending on e7 would mean we could come in with this rook. So now this, after bishop takes, this knight has a very important defensive role. And it looks to me as if white is kind of doing pretty well here. But white is still down a pawn, and black's king is pretty safe, and there are also counter-attacking options here. So, oh wow! So this is a nice little move. Fischer plays bishop back to its starting square on f8. I think that's very forcing, actually very curious, because it unveils this attack, so you can't really just capture, for instance, because we lose the queen, but at the same time we can't just move the queen, because then we lose the bishop protected by the queen. So what's going on here? What's the clever way? What is the clever way out of this? Is it check? It was, yes, check. Okay, so I guess the only move here would be bishop back. Not at all. This bishop is very strong. We really needed to defend the dark square. So instead we play knight takes. And here's the question: if we play rook takes or queen takes. I guess we have to play queen takes, because otherwise we lose the queen. So queen takes, check, and now I would guess bishop, but then that would allow queen takes here. But this looks a little bit awkward for this bishop, so I'm guessing bishop g7. No. It is rook here. Is that because bishop here, queen takes here is too strong? Or is it because that it is very important to have this rook attacking here? Because in fact now we are threatening queen takes check with very dangerous prospects. So okay, like it seems unnatural to me to play rook here, but I can in hindsight, of course, that's 2020, and then I can see that it's important to keep attacking here. But queen takes here, getting the material back. Or even rook takes. So now we are even on material. 4 pawns to 4 pawns. And black's pieces look quite nice, I would say. But white's pieces also look really nice. move like rook here, threatening something here. But check. We have been thinking about that move for almost the entire game. So I guess I don't think we will be playing this. Just being a pawn down again and then trading off into a rook endgame. I don't think so. I think king here. Yeah. And this knight is very nice defending here. So there is no check that won't be devastating at least. But now after here and king moves to g1, queen g4, very, very subtle threat here of just coming in and checkmating. And is there some shenanigans? Rook takes check, that doesn't do anything. Rook takes rook and there's nothing. So I guess we have to defend this like this maybe. No, because that would be attacked by the queen. So instead rook f2 defends. We can still double up. The queen here could come under attack, but it would still have check as a way to get out of it. And Fischer wants to activate this guy, so he plays bishop d7. And this bishop is not so good. So yeah, on d7 it may be able to come here. But notice it can't go here, can't go here, it can go here. But I'm not sure what it's supposed to be doing over there. But on d7 there is this threat of coming in and skewering the rooks here. So we thought about this move. Rook to e4, threatening the queen. And we don't see the check. Maybe it's because he wants to avoid repetition. So instead he goes here. And he wants to exchange the queens. And we don't want to exchange the queens, I guess. We have a bit of a situation of all the eggs in one basket because we are still a pawn down. And there has been this theme of we equalized, but then immediately black took another pawn, then we equalized again, then immediately black took another pawn. So it's not the same pawn we've been down, but we are still a pawn down. I'm guessing queen here, just attacking the rook. We have all the eggs in one basket here in a way, because if we exchange the queens, this will probably just be a very good endgame for black. Winning endgame probably. It's not here. Is there any particular reason why that's not what we are playing? Maybe because this is really annoying. So instead here, this rook very nicely keeping an eye on this pawn here. So I would say that I don't think that white is really... I know that white is winning this game, but I wouldn't want to have the white pieces here. The position looks pretty good for black, to be honest. It looks like we do like all of our pieces are doing something nice for white, but all of black's pieces are also doing something nice. And black has a pawn. Black has a pawn ahead. And now there's an interesting move by Fischer. After queen d4 we see rook f8, offering a trade of rooks, also offering something like just queen takes c3. Rook takes rook, check, bishop takes. Or rook here, trying to... No, we can just capture that. I was thinking of trying to trap the queen. How about rook takes rook, queen takes? Oh, instead of trying to capture the queen, trap the queen like this, Spassky tries like this. So I guess here we can try to exchange the queens with something like this, because queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, rook takes rook. Black is toast. So and we can't be here, so I'm guessing here, but then rook takes, but that's a big problem. Actually, what does white play here? I mean, what does black play? Can't go here, lose the queen. Can't go here, queen takes, bishop takes rook, you lose a rook. Can't go here, rook takes. Actually, rook takes here is even also harassing the king, so that's also a big problem. Guys, what did black play here? Okay, counter-attacking the queen like this. Interesting. Queen takes, check. Bishop takes, rook takes. Let's say bishop takes, rook check. Is there a way? How about queen here? Still threatening. And now this knight is taking away. There's no check. Can get out of. So here now we would double up on this. That looks nice. Ooh, and that is what Spassky played. Yes. So now we have all these problems again, as black can't go here. Takes. Oh, wait a minute. No, we just. If you go here, takes. So maybe here is okay for black. But we can harass the queen further, maybe. Something like this. So what does Fischer do? Yeah, he does play here. These moves are pretty forcing. And I was thinking, ooh, that was correct as well. Here. And now so I'm just trying to get rook takes bishop to work. Can't go here to defend. Can't go here to defend. There's no getting out of it with a check. There's no going here with a check. Here. But problem is you're not threatening checkmate because the queen defends. Otherwise it could be rook takes bishop, checkmate. But queen defends. Okay, let's see. That's the last move. So actually Fischer resigned here because this just powerhouse. You want to control the center of the board in chess. How about you have queen, rook, just okay, so that was a very, very tactical game. and it felt like Fischer was doing very well out of the opening, but he wasn't satisfied. And you know how I know he wasn't satisfied? I know because today not many people play the King's Gambit at the highest level, particularly not regularly. They will, Nakamura will take it out as a surprise weapon sometimes, but they won't play it regularly. And it's because after this game, Fischer spent a long time, months, writing an article called A Bust to the King's Gambit, because he was so annoyed at losing this game that he apparently wrote a whole thing where he more or less showed the perfect way to play against the King's Gambit. We are going to have to take a look at that at some point as well in our series. But for now, I'm very interested in your feedback on this new format. Do you like learning with me? Do you like this format? If you do, what do you want to see next? What's the next step that we should take in order to learn the King's Gambit more? Should we study more Spassky games? Should we read some theory? Should we read some of the history of this opening? What do you think? And with that, the lights went out, and I guess that means that it's bye-bye to this video and bye-bye to you if you are not already sound asleep. Thanks for watching. I hope I will see you in the next video.